Hello and welcome back to a brand new Player 2 review discussion. Today I'm joined by two fantastic folk, neither of which I've actually done a review discussion with so far. We have Explosion Network's Dylan Blight.
Hello, happy to be here. Surely we've done a review discussion, maybe not on your show.
Not on this platform side of things. We've done stuff.
Probably on Radio Watson or something. Shout outs.
Yeah, the Returnal one early in the year. Yeah. That would have been the most recent thing that I think you and I have actually done together. And Chris Button from GamesHub and a million other awesome places as well. How are you?
Yeah, keeping busy. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's awesome to have you both here. It's awesome, a great combination of people and myself. So it's going to make for a really great episode. We are here to break down Unpacking. We're going to unpack Unpacking, as it were. Brand new title, just come out. Oh, actually, are we on release day? I've lost track of the release date of this thing.
When are you posting it? No, it's not. It doesn't. Embargo. It's not out. A couple days from now.
It's this week. It's this week. Yeah. You should look forward to it because I think most of us are fairly unanimously positive on this thing. But we're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to break down what we've seen, what we've experienced, and hopefully what we've liked about it. So, who wants to get this ball rolling? With some overall kind of top level thoughts.
Chris should set the bar high so I can throw it together.
We can both limbo under it.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I've been playing a fair bit of Unpacking over the last few days, and yeah, surface level impressions is that this is something really special, and I think this will be an Australian indie gem that we will talk about and look back on for years to come. It's really something unique and something we haven't really seen from. I don't think anyone really, because I think people love playing games like The Sims or these cozy little sim games where you arrange houses and decorate things and that sort of stuff. But the more structured nature of Unpacking, where you've got specific possessions to go through and trying to piece together someone's life from it, it's a really unique concept, and I think the Brisbane-based Witchbeam team have absolutely smashed it out of the park with this one. It's just full of love, full of care, and so many lovely little details that is worth really taking your time to soak it all in. So really impressed with Unpacking.
Dylan, you're right. We are just going to limbo straight under that bar he just set. But what do you think?
I was going to ask a quick question because I was just thinking of it as you're saying it. What are you playing on PC or Switch?
I'm playing on Switch.
And I'll Switch as well.
And use on TV or handheld or combination?
I've tried both, but primarily handheld.
Yeah, I've exclusively been handheld, but yeah, I'll likely try it on TV before it releases. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you said like the amount of detail and stuff, because I'm playing it on PC, and yeah, like there was that point where the first box I opened where there was a bunch of Blu-rays, and I pull one out and I start putting them. As someone who has a lot of Blu-rays, I start putting them one by one on the coffee table so I can make sure to clearly see without my mouse cursor on top of it, like what's inside of each one. And the first one I pull out is very obviously Jaws, and I'm like, oh boy, we're in good. I know, so now I know they're all going to be real movies. So then I have to try and figure out what each one are. But yeah, when you said Switch, I was like, oh, maybe playing it handheld, you would be able to tell, or like
no, you can. And thankfully, because of that zoom in. Quality like button or feature you got in the top right corner, it allows you to get right up close and still work out what they are. Obviously, again, they don't straight up write Jaws for obvious reasons, but they give you enough to work with. So
it's like the Wii doesn't say Nintendo Wii, or like the DS doesn't say Nintendo DS,
but
whatever. So Unpacking so you can read my review explosion.com. So there's my pitch for that straight away. I'm saying this to clarify, so I'm giving this a 10. Straight I got this. This is my second 10 for 2021. And I think this game does something so unique. Like by the time I got to the end of it, so it's really weird because the gameplay is great. Like the general gameplay of having to fit these things in, and you don't get a timer, it's not super punishing. There's enough like leeway with certain objects where you'll pull something out like a stuffed toy or whatever, and it'll be like, look, as long as you have it anywhere on a surface in the bedroom, you're probably good to go. Something else like a knife and fork, you try and put it anywhere other than the cupboard knives and forks go in, the game's going to go, that has to go somewhere unless you turn on the feature. I don't know if it's unlocked from the start, but by the end,
it's
like
not till after.
Yeah, so once you beat the game, you can click a feature that lets you just do whatever you want. So that's a whole different way to play the game. But if you play it for the first time, you get that stuff. So for the most part, you do have a little bit of leeway, but none of it's super frustrating. Like, it just feels good. It's like almost like playing a Tetris, that same sort of feeling where you get a Tetris, but you're just constantly sort of getting that without the same sort of stress. So the game itself is good, but that's the part that's least the least standout, which is weird to say because it's so good. The part that surprised me so much is how invested I was in the story, which, like,
without a single word of dialogue.
Without a single word of dialogue. And I think that's the reason the game's so impressive, because I think I have a line in my review where I say something like, I've played games with thousands of words of dialogue, like think of JRPGs or, you know, whatever. And none of them, and those sorts of games haven't got me as invested in a singular character or such a simple sort of, using like the anime term, a slice of life narrative as Unpacking does. Because you get to that stage where as you're going between the moves, you're pulling stuff out and you're like, I'm sort of arguing with the character as I'm learning. So I pull something out, I'm like, oh, good, we still have this thing. All right, that's good.
Yeah,
like,
right.
We've still kept this.
Sort of things,
and then I'll pull something else out and be like, buy this thing for? Like, this is crap. Like, we should have brought something that's better than this, you know, like, and I feel like the game, I don't know if it's done on purpose where it'll start in a certain room and maybe they use that whole sort of like, it's the same sort of methodology used for like magic tricks where it's like, people will always go for the same sort of side of a card or something, and they use that to do the card tricks, because it'll be like, this box will be placed there, and I don't know if it's purposely going like 9 out of 10 people will probably start in this box, because sometimes you get some easy draws where it's like safe, and then suddenly you pull something out and you're like, oh, like, and it tells you a story within one object where it's like romance change or lifestyle change, or even just something as interesting as the like general life interest change, and that's all told within one object. But yeah, by time, without spoiling, because Chris hasn't beat it. God damn it. And we're not going to.
I'm close.
Yeah.
Well, we know he's on the final level, which means he's seen pretty much all there is to see
level,
because you can just comb through the boxes and see it. But yeah, we won't.
But I started getting like teared up by the time I beat the game. Like by the time I got to that final sort of scene and the final image of the game before it like fades into text, it was like it was almost like I'd spent so long getting to know someone through ruffling through their belongings and stuff, and then to finally meet them, I guess to a degree, like finally at the end of the game, I was like, oh, and like, yeah, it just made me like sort of teary. Like I wasn't like bawling or anything. It was just like such a nice
little gentle one.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, what an amazing game to like get me so invested in a character and such a simple story. Like there's nothing, I don't think it's a spoiler to say nothing crazy happens. There's no like big swerve or twist or anything. It's just like normal life to a degree, but it's just told so well through objects. And I'm like, no game has done that. No game has told a story this interesting using nothing but objects. The most mundane of tasks, like literally unpacking boxes. So yeah, I think it's a complete gem. One of the best games I've played definitely all year, and one of the most interesting sort of mechanical cross with story narrative elements I've played in years. Yeah,
I'm inclined to agree. Certainly, I mean, for a lot of people, the idea of packing and unpacking their stuff is a traumatizing sort of experience when regardless of the circumstance that might be underpinning it. You know, just simply moving house and having to go through that can be like, even me moving my stuff into my what are we calling it again? The stable that I've got here. Like that's, even moving stuff in here for all this setup was just torturous. So to be able to take something that tends to elicit an angsty, nasty sort of response from people and turn it into something so zen, so relaxing, and so impactful is a really incredible feat. I also can't help but wonder now, like thankfully I don't live in a big bustling city. I'm on the outskirts, but is this what it's like when people are rifling through your rubbish now? Like, how much do they know about us if they're doing that? I'm worried. I'm glad I don't live in the city. I hope there's no one rifling through my rubbish now. It's midnight. But yeah, I mean, I echo everything that you've both said so far. Like, it just, I was fascinated from, it doesn't go year by year, but it jumps in intervals, and like there's some bigger jumps early on, and then towards the end, the amount of time that's passed really starts to close in. Like I think we started in 1997, and then the first jump between levels, quote unquote, is to 2004. We've leapt 7 years ahead. And that's because we're kind of going from a kid to late teens, maybe even 20, give or take, sort of that ballpark there. And then we start to see some smaller jumps there because I think, as most people know, you start, like a lot of people will go, there's certain beats you start to potentially hit in around that window, and we see those actually playing out in that case. And I was, to your point a moment ago, Dylan, like I was fascinated every single time. Okay, new place or whatever, like what's changed? And you'd find, as you said, they kind of pump fake you early on with a few, oh, here's some coasters. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get the coasters and I'll put them in a big stack of 4 and move on. Oh, what's this? Oh, hang on. And then eventually, as I get towards the end, where's that thing? Why is that not here? What happened? And you start the kind of, cause I don't know about the both of you. My tactic, more often than not, a bit like your Blu-ray comment, I'd actually collect everything. Like I just kind of throw things on the floor.
I started doing that. Not in the first, like probably 2 levels, but by the end of the game, I was putting mostly everything on the floor.
Yeah, because that's, I guess, the one thing that we don't have as the players, that we're kind of looking in on the scenario. We don't actually know what's in there beforehand. So regardless of how it's assembled, we have no idea what there is. So we're having to learn this stuff on the fly. So I was very much, okay, let me spread all this out on the floor, or pin it all to the wall, kind of, CSI sort of style, and just put everything up there and have a look at the whole, and set the scene first, and then I'd start going from there. So you start to notice, oh, this is not here, or these photos, that's of this and this and this, and that's Jaws, and like I'd start to notice those things, and I'd be really trying to pick apart what's going on. And of course, they scatter a few things amongst different rooms as well. Something that belongs in the bedroom is actually stashed in with the kitchen stuff for whatever reason. So then you're kind of bouncing between room to room to try and work out, is that thing that I'm trying to hunt actually just here, or is it straight up gone? And it was fascinating to just pour through it. It's a puzzle game at its core to an extent, with the with what you were describing before. Some things don't necessarily, they do have certain spots, and you need to kind of work out what those are. But I didn't come across any of those barriers because I just spent my time really trying to pick through and understand what it is that what the story is that they're trying to tell, and everything just fell into place as a result. So
And on that story note, as both of you have mentioned, trying to figure out, okay, have they kept this particular item, because this will have pretty big story implications if it is or isn't there. It's such a novel way of building narrative tension and building some form of stakes in what is otherwise a very chilled out sort of game, because as you're getting to the last boxes and the last possessions in said boxes, you start wondering, oh no, this hasn't gone, or they haven't left this behind, because it's so fascinating what stories can be told through someone's possessions, or what possessions are of importance to someone at particular moments in their lives. It's they've done such a great job with that, and with those little details, being able to pick up, oh yeah, that Blu-ray is Jaws, or oh, this very GameCube looking game is one of the Metroid Prime-esque sort of games, that sort of thing. And even reading through all or seeing through the covers of the books that are all designed so meticulously. It looks like the person's a tabletop fan. You can pick out particular tabletop book adventures and that sort of thing. It's really, really impressive what they've done with these pixel art visuals. Yeah,
they really Ren, Tim, and the team have done an amazing job in that sense. And again, they've just given you enough. You still fill in a lot of the gaps yourself, I found, and it was nice at the end there, without spoiling anything for you, Chris, or anyone else who's watching this or listening to this and hasn't played it yet, but intends to. It was nice that they do give that one little screen at the end that kind of really explains to you, here's what the scenario is. And it was nice to see that everything I'd kind of speculated on, and by the time you get to the end, you can really start to. I'd like to think most people would be able to work it out anyway, but you can see this gradual ascension. You can see where this person might have come into life, and how this might have happened, and how this might have happened, and then to get that one little screen at the end that shows what it shows. I nearly blurted it out then, but just kind of shows what the situation is. Was nice, and it also really reflective of how superb that storytelling is. That again, through a total lack of dialogue, no text boxes, no prompts, no nothing, you were able to assemble this story yourself and be bang on the money with what they were intending and the story they were trying to tell. Or more often, most likely, I'd imagine, for most people. It's really cool.
You're gonna wonder also, like, because I wouldn't say I was rushing, but also I wasn't like spending ages like really looking over every single thing in the game. So you gotta wonder how many potential smaller little
Nuggets
stories
might be
or
there.
elements might be hidden amongst there. Because I know there's the little hidden stickers you can unlock for
Yep.
a start, which are quite fun. You know, they're not like really story things, but they're fun things I may have missed because I think I got
They're
like
the replay value.
five. Yeah, I got like 5 or 6 in the total. Because I was thinking, you reminded me when you said the D&D thing, because there's the 1 week and you can actually put the dice between 2 stuffed toys or something like that on a kitchen table, and that unlocks one of them. And
Oh, really?
yeah, like there's a couple funny little ones which I didn't look them up. I just like randomly, because a lot of them you're just I think they're designed for people to be, like around. Oh, if people are having fun, we'll do this. Like there's one for putting like certain 2 stuffed animals on a bed in like maybe the 3rd or
Oh,
second
yeah.
last levels. And I just did that naturally because I was like, well, this is what you'll do, and then it'd come up with a little thing or whatever else. So it's like rewarding at times to sort of unlock those without being trying to seek out what they do, because they also sort of played into often what was happening in the back end of the story, or what was happening, or the interests of the character you're playing as, I guess.
Yeah.
And with some of the objects, there are multiple levels of interactivity as well. So for anyone who is going to go through and play Unpacking for the first time, if something looks like it might have an interactive element on Switch, press that B button and see what little Easter eggs you can find, because there are some absolutely delightful ones.
Are you talking about... No, actually, delightful wouldn't be the word I'd use for it. So I guess we're maybe not talking about the same thing. But there's
there's that many of them.
The little man figure one with all the little joints that you can basically just get him so he's like dabbing it along the way, and you actually
That's one of them, definitely. Yeah.
That's definitely not an overly endearing moment, but I'd get a chuckle out of the whole thing, which was good.
Did you realize you can shake some stuff around too, and it like makes. So like I picked up one of the guitars at some stage, and just like holding my mouse, I was like shaking it backwards and forwards on the screen. You could hear like rattle, 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 like
what?
Moving it fast. Yeah. Like so, there's lots of small details.
Chris, did you get anything like that on the Switch?
I can't say I tried that specifically, but now I'm going
just
to
throw
try
your Switch across the room and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna ramp up the cursor speed now and just move all the stuff along the screen.
I guess actually, since we've just kind of highlighted some potential differences between platforms there, as Dylan, you kind of pointed out earlier on, you're playing on PC, we're playing on the Switch. There were potential concerns that I had going into it around the interface and like how you would interface, with the game, especially on the Switch there with the sticks, having to use the analog sticks for the whole thing. I tried that out today. I was recording as of when we record this, I was recording a Player 2 Plays to go up for the channel, and that's when I first decided, okay, I might try it that way, because everything else I was using the touchscreen, which it sounds like, Chris, that's the same as you and I. I think you were the same. Was that right?
I've just been using the sticks, and I found them fine.
The sticks.
Yeah.
I was really concerned that would just not feel intuitive at all compared to how easy it is to kind of flick your mouse around and work the mouse and keyboard or the touchscreen. But I was fairly happy with it. Yes, it's probably the least optimal way to play, in my opinion. But it still felt pretty good. Like, they did a pretty good job with that. It gets a little more difficult when you're going for some of those. I mean, this character has a lot of underwear. Especially towards the end. Like,
hold on, let me just say, I have so much more underwear.
Okay.
And I actually felt like they didn't have enough. Is a thought. Because at some stage I actually counted the amount of underwear, and when that's like barely a week. Like I think it was like 6 or something.
Oh, early on it was a bit light on, but you have to assume like they're young, so you're like mum and dad's probably doing it for them. There's like a half weekly wash, whatever the case happens to be. But towards the end, I was like, you've got like 10 days here. That's enough.
Also, talk about first for video games, like narrative first. Also, I've never counted someone's underwear in a video game before.
But like in those particular instances, when playing on the Switch, regardless of whether it was on the screen or portable, and you actually I did have to zoom in those particular instances just to try and place the thing where I wanted to place it, or if I was trying to pick out something to move it, that was a bit of a challenge as well. So I had to zoom right in, where I didn't have to do that if I was actually using the touchscreen. I could just pinpoint it, off I go from either there was 3 levels of zoom. You could zoom right out, which I kind of felt was mostly unnecessary unless I was just trying to take stock of what I'd created.
Wanting to admire the room's ambience.
Yeah. Then kind of the middle one, and then when it which is where I spent 95% of my time, and I was only zoomed right in that instance when I was trying to use the sticks, where it just didn't quite work for some of those smaller items. But overall, I feel like control-wise, it worked well regardless. Clearly, I mean, I've played the game on PC in the past for demos and those sorts of things. That worked well. Happy with the touch interface, and yeah, as much as it's not perfect, anyone who plays with sticks should feel pretty okay with what they're going to experience there, which makes it, puts it on the table for PlayStation and Xbox somewhere down the line, presumably.
Isn't it on X? I thought it was on.
Actually, it's on Game Pass. Yeah, sorry, good point. Coming to Game Pass. Sorry, I guess for PlayStation people, if they don't down the line don't feel like you need to worry about the platform, you're good.
Yeah. Go for that platinum. Come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Oh.
Get on it, Witchbeam. Come on.
Yeah, your bread was butter there. Assault Android Cactus is still a PlayStation game. Come on. Not okay. Ren, Tim, I'll be on the phone. Anyway, anything else that we've not necessarily touched on that you both wanted to really highlight? Because I guess in a lot of ways there's a lot to the game, but also not a lot to the game. We could easily talk probably for hours about this story stuff, but we'd be spoiling Chris and potential viewers/listeners, so we don't want to do that just yet. But is there anything that we've not touched on that you'd really like to highlight?
So one thing, my only negative, but not enough that it really affected my overall opinion on the game, is that the music is good, but I found it kind of weird how it would sort of just drop out, and then there'd be maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds of silence, and then the song would just sort of boot up again. It wasn't that sort of natural looping sort of sound. The music's good. I just thought it was weirdly implemented into the game, and it felt like more of a backing track that someone had just dropped into the back of the game, more so than a soundtrack that was built to fit into the game. Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, I encountered the same, where it did feel like there were some noticeable pauses between music tracks, and I don't know if that was by design or whether that's just something that's going to be ironed out post-launch, but it's something I explicitly noticed, so it did sort of stick out a little bit for me. But yeah, I certainly like the soundtrack, and there's plenty of little audio Easter eggs to be found along the way as well.
Yeah, that too. Those little touch tones are quite nice, actually. Obviously there's the visual cues for a lot of people, and again, Jaws, holy shit, that's Jaws. But yeah, some of those little audio cues are quite nice as well. I guess I'll echo that one. It's not one that I'd necessarily thought too much about, so I guess it's a good thing I've still got to write my review at this point. Thanks, guys.
I did not. I'll admit, it's such a little thing.
Oh no, it's very minor.
I didn't include it in my review because it's one of those things where I'm like, what's the point of adding a couple sentence paragraph here just to go, here's a thing I didn't like, when ultimately I don't think it affects my.
It's an incredible experience all up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't detract from it whatsoever. And I did actually find, just from my playing experience, and I was playing it portably, and I'd play it at home, I'd play it at work when I got some down moments. And sometimes I would have no audio on just because of the scenario I was in. So there might have been a few times where I might have missed that as well. But the soundtrack itself is fantastic. And yeah, the implementation is a bit funny in that one instance, but it's not. It's definitely not going to curb anyone's experience at all.
There's that. I don't know if it's the last level or second last level. Maybe it is the last. Where you've got that really good sort of Australian sound design with the birds in the background and stuff that's happening with the birds or cackling, magpies or something like
Possibly.
that. It sounds. It's only time. I don't know if it's the last or second last level. And you have to be in particular rooms, where obviously the windows are or whatever.
It's an actual environmental noise.
Yeah, you'll hear I'm really bad at bird impressions. That was my that was my attempt. But yeah, it was that sort of typical, if you imagine a sound design for what bird noises do you make so people realize it's set in Australia. It was that, but it was a one-time playing a game where the sound design felt prominently this is set in Australia compared to other times where I was thinking maybe this isn't set in Australia because there was no particular like standout signs to say it was or was not set in Australia, even though it was designed here by Australian developers. But it was when I got to that moment that I was like, yes, it is still set in Australia.
That's fascinating. I guess I never heard those sound effects myself, so without
PC
any
exclusive,
cues,
maybe.
Here's a random cricket bat lying around that says, "Oh, okay, we're quite possibly in Australia." That still doesn't 100% narrow it down, but like there weren't any of those sort of really obvious on the nose, "Hey, this is where they live," sort of thing. So I'm glad you spotted that. That's quite cool. Chris, it looked like you were going to say something there.
Yeah, well, just on the little details. So obviously, there's lots of those little audio details, and some of those motifs that occur throughout levels. But one thing I really liked and was sort of mesmerized by a couple of times was with some of the locations that you're unpacking at. If you look out the window of some of the locations, especially if they've got cityscapes in the background, there's actually little bits of motion of like traffic going past or weather rolling in and that sort of stuff. So it's really a lot of really nice little visual flourishes as well. Yeah,
really subtle, but it did just set that scene that extra 1 or 2% that made a big difference.
Yeah. One other thing I would like to mention, sort of on a story point, but not necessarily the explicit story that Unpacking is telling. One thing I really liked is you could not only could you infer your own sort of conclusions as to what's happening throughout the various levels or the year periods that each of the sections are set in, but you could also sort of put your own twist on the story as well based on where you place items. Because I was thinking, especially when I was playing around with trying to figure out where to put the yoga mat and the hand weights, I was sort of thinking, oh, okay, is this person really active or not really active? So if they're not active, then it'll go way buried, way under the bed, hard to reach. Or you could put it sort of more within reach, just under, that's easy to grab out as you get out of bed to start the day. And also, with other things like where you place particular office supplies or ornaments or, games and books and that sort of thing, it's sort of like you can almost fill in the blanks and create your own canon for this particular character or the situations that they're in, reorganizing their priorities in a way. Obviously, it doesn't impact the overall path of the story, but it's really nice that you can sort of use the tools and the possessions that you're given to then put a little bit of your own flair into the character, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and there was even like a couple instances, like little things like they were diaries, but there was one in particular, I think it was in that 2004 period that actually had like 2003-4 on it. I'm like, it seems like something that you might be documenting, like an actual journal. Again, I'm thinking, okay, you're probably teens, maybe early 20s, like you're making a whole bunch of personal notes here. We don't want to leave that one in plain sight. I want to put that on the bookshelf like everything else. So I buried it amongst everything else that I had. Like in the closet, I might have, weights or whatever sort of things might be there, and I'd stick the book at the back. And so once everything was in its place, you couldn't see that it was there. And it's that sort of stuff that you just described. Yeah, you're kind of putting a little bit of yourself in there, and even just where would I put this sort of side as well. I'd start to critique how some of the things, because obviously you walk into, especially as things start to really develop in the game, they're not leaving you at square one. Like there's a few things already in place.
Yeah.
And I'd move a lot of that around. I'm like, no, this is not how you do that. Come on, over here. I couldn't help it.
There was one time where I pulled, I thought I was okay with what I was doing in a wardrobe. And then I got to the end and I placed everything else. Just like, this is absolutely shocking. And I had to just pull every drawer out, every item I'd hung up, and I placed them all back on the floor just so I could start from square one, because I was like, I could not live like this, and neither can you. No.
Why am I doing this to you?
Yeah. So
again, it's all about that attachment, that investment that you grow towards this character and the scenario. It's uncanny how well it draws you in, and how much you want to try and you live your best life. This is how we're going to do it. So yeah, it's really, really impressive in that regards.
Yeah, the number of layers to that storytelling and how we can inject ourselves into it is so impressive.
Yeah, without like spoiling, like because there's that you get to a stage where it might be in the last level, so you might have already seen it, Chris, but you get to a stage where you open one box and it's one box filled with a particular item that makes you go, oh, they achieved their dream, like, or like they're on the way to achieving their dream, or like something like that, and it's just opening that particular box without spoiling what their profession or whatever it is. It was one of those moments where I clicked on it expecting it to be who knows what, and then you pull out, I'm like, is that? And you pull out next thing, and I'm like, oh, so you get really excited for this character. You don't really like, it's those small moments that really make the game what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, gents, where can we find all the awesome work that we've been doing around this game? Chris, I'll get you to start.
Yeah, so I freelance for a few different places. So Twitter's the best place to hunt me down, and that's at BIBBYBHOY. And I've got a big feature on the making of Unpacking and a bit of the history of Witchbeam going up on GamesHub sometime this week, probably around launch for Unpacking.
Sweet. Dylan?
You can find all my stuff on explosionnetwork.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivaladil, Bibaladil. And you can read my Unpacking review on the website.
You already know the score he's given it, but make sure to read those words, because if they're anything like what we've described here, it's going to be nice, thorough, and fascinating read. So make sure to go check that out as well. On my end, Paul James Games for me. Go check out the Player 2 website where my review will be there. Mine is not done yet, so thanks for giving me all your ideas. I'm just going to thieve them. No. It seems like we're all in sync there, and I'm thrilled to hear. Like, I think it's the thing that we always go through when we're reviewing a game. Like, am I overrating? Am I where am I? Where do I? And it seems like we're all unanimously positive. And so, anyone who's watching or listening to this and is unsure about it, I think a big rubber stamp from all of us.
Which is good, because I came on here already having written my review, going 10 out of 10, and then I'm like,
oh shit.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully I'm not the only
one. Well, actually, one thing I would like to close out with very briefly is that obviously, so this is Witchbeam's second game, the first being Assault Android Cactus, the twin stick shooter from a few years ago. And one thing when I was interviewing Tim and Ren for the Unpacking feature is that so Assault Android Cactus reviewed pretty strongly, and it's a very good game, but it sold modestly, enough to keep Witchbeam going as a small indie developer. But I reckon Unpacking, I reckon this has the potential to go big and do something really special for Witchbeam. Yeah, so I really hope that people take to Unpacking, and I've got a strong feeling they will.
Yeah.
Following Goose Game steps, and Jeff Keighley's shouting out the nominees at the Game Awards.
Yeah, who knows? We might be hearing the game feature there. That'd be pretty awesome. Let's just lobby hard on the fan end and make sure that happens. But anyway, as we just mentioned there, you've got all our Twitter handles. You know exactly where to go find our content, so please make sure to go and check all of that out. Boys, thanks for coming on and chatting Unpacking with me. For Unpacking.
Been happy to unpack.
Thank you.
It's a horrible joke. But thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.